so very much for being here today. As you know, this is part of a larger project through the Donahue Center to record the actions and memories and stories of the revitalization of Lowell in the 1970s and 80s, and then how that has continued up till today, focusing on different people and different organizations and different nonprofits that had all had a very seminal role in the city that we know and love. So we'll start off with some general questions about the early years, and then bring it up to the present. So maybe each of you could take a minute or two to say something about your own experiences growing up in the city.
And maybe start with a little introduction of your roles, and maybe
Oh,
Jay,
sorry,
if
yeah.
you want to start.
Sure. Okay. Sure. Jay Linnehan. I currently operate as the president and CEO of the Greater Lowell Community Foundation. Been in this city for my whole life, but not yet. Hopefully I have a little bit more time left there. But, from 1954, grew up in the Highlands.
Okay.
And went to grade school in the Highlands at St. Margaret's, which is no longer in existence. And high school went to Bishop Girton, and it was the second graduating class from Bishop Girton up in Nashua. Went to the university, and as we went to high school, moved to Belvedere, so I've been in Belvedere for many, many years and still live in Belvedere in Lowell. Worked in Boston for a number of years for the House Ways and Means Committee, the Executive Office of Human Services, Administration and Finance, and then spent almost 25 years at Middlesex Community College before I walked down the street to the foundation. And I've been there almost 7 years now. So
My goodness.
it's been fun. It's fun working in the city that you live in.
Right.
Because there's that cause and effect that has so much more of an impact when you're doing something and you can, in day to day, you see it in your travels around the community.
And you see the results
Right.
of
Yeah, it's pretty
decisions
cool.
and actions that have been taken.
It's neat.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And Chet?
I'm also born in the city, actually born at St. Joseph's Hospital, which is now part of UMass
Right.
Lowell, and Moloney Hall as well too. So, but born in 1958 here in Lowell. I've lived in this area my entire life. Grew up in the Centerville section of Lowell, so we grew up on Christian Hill,
Right.
off 3rd Street, on Durant Street. Went to St. Michael's Grammar School as a child, and then for freshman year went to the Robinson Junior High, because at the time the class sizes were so large at Lowell High School that they had to utilize the junior highs for 9th grade in many instances. And then did my 3 years at Lowell High School, graduated. Was a football player, got recruited to play football at Princeton University, so that opened some doors for me, and graduated from Princeton, and then came back and got involved in a banking career. As part of that, got my MBA at Boston College, and really have had a career in banking that spans about 40 years right now, and the last 26 years have been with Enterprise Bank here in Lowell.
Which is
Yeah.
headquartered right across the street from where we're sitting, correct?
Exactly, yep,
Yeah,
yeah.
And we'll hopefully be talking with the chairman, George Duncan, in a future interview. But back to the Community Foundation, and just looking, we all know how many nonprofits are touched by the Community Foundation, and thank you both for your leadership, and you've really grown it. But just a little history going back, why a Community Foundation? Why was that important to the city of Lowell?
Let me take it back even further than that.
Okay.
Community foundations were created back in 1904. And how they came to be, which is an interesting story, was there were all these charitable trusts, and it was in particular in some of the major banks and some of the major cities around the country. They had these charitable trusts, and the folks that established them were no longer around, they were no longer living. And the banks were going, what are we going to do with these charitable trusts? And they fundamentally started to create community foundations. They came together as banks, put together committees, and said, how are we going to disperse this money? Right. And that started in Cleveland, and then moved to Chicago, to Boston, and so forth. And that evolved throughout the years. And in 1969, the IRS formally recognized community foundations and put it as part of the IRS tax and regulations. And they've boomed since then. There are over 800 community foundations throughout the country, and they have over $140 billion invested.
Yeah.
So, and some of them have, way more money than the Greater Lowell Community Foundation has, because oftentimes they've been in existence for a long, long time. Community foundations have been in existence for 26 years, and in the scheme of a foundation, we're still just a little kid.
Yeah.
We keep going to grow, but we're just a
Right.
little kid. But as far as the community foundation itself, it was back in 95, 96, thereabouts. Karen Carpenter, New Flather, part of the Parker Foundation, together with a variety of key individuals in the Greater Lowell community, said, does Greater Lowell need a community foundation? And they did a study, and it came back, and the answer was emphatically yes. We need
Yeah.
our own community foundation, because community foundations, as you may know, are geographic in nature. As I talk about the 800, they all have little geographic areas. We don't,
Right.
some overlap here and there, but fundamentally it's what part of the community are you going to be a community foundation for? And we've got Lowell and 20 surrounding communities. And the fundamental premise of a community foundation is boots on the ground philanthropy, and it's keeping the wealth in the community, that whatever that regional is, for the benefit of that particular community.
Right.
And as George Duncan was one of the key players back in that day and one of the founders, I mean, he was always heard to be saying, look, people have been making money for all these years and they've been sending it to the Boston Foundation. It's time we had
Right.
our own here.
Right.
And as we were celebrating our 25th anniversary last year, we've used that quote in a number of places, as George, again, was instrumental, a key individual. So it was in 1997, June 2, that the Articles of Organization were filed with the Secretary of State. Dan Manser was the gentleman who
Interesting.
filed them with the Articles of Organization. It was $35 to file them back in that day, and we were off and running. And it wasn't but a couple years after that, they had charter members. So they reached out into the community to say, we've got a community foundation. Who wants to be a charter member? And within a year, there was 300 charter members.
Oh, my goodness.
That gave either $5 or a significant amount greater than that.
Right.
And to the credit of the Parker Foundation, they put $1 million into the foundation back in that day to get everything started.
Right.
So that was pretty cool too. And then I think just another piece is that when I talk to folks about community foundations, they go, what is a community foundation?
Yeah.
And clearly it's a nonprofit, it's a public agency, it's a public charity. And by that, all the funds, 1/3 of the funds or more need to be from the public.
Okay.
And when folks say, what does that mean? I said, contrast that with like the Gates Foundation. It's all his money.
Right.
One person. He is not a public foundation. He's a private foundation. So when you have a public foundation, much of the money comes from the community that you serve. You also have governance, a board that you have, and you do grants of a variety of different kinds, donor advised funds and scholarships and lots of different things like that. And again, the whole premise is, what are the needs in the community that need to be addressed, and how can the philanthropy of the Greater Lowell Community Foundation be directed towards those needs? And that's what we do.
And you do a great job. And as we're going through these interviews, including the one we just had with Mike Gallagher, what continues to strike us is the people who had the vision and who really kind of thought outside the box and thought really big. And you think about, when you just mentioned the Parker Foundation, $1 million to start, but there was a big, bold vision there. So I know when I was on the board, I think we were only 10 million, and people were saying, oh, maybe we can get to 15 million. How big is the community foundation today?
Well, today we're approaching 60 million. And I know when I started.
60.
60. And I know I've been with the Community Foundation for 9 years now. And at that time, we were probably about 31, 32 million. And we had a goal of reaching 50 million within a certain time frame. And at that point, we thought it was a pretty far stretch goal. But sure enough, we were able to achieve it under Jay's leadership and the very strong team that he's put in place here at the foundation as well.
Yeah, we're certainly lucky to have your leadership, Jay.
Well, thank
You
you.
were a key player in getting it to this scale, and
Yes.
Chet, and thank you for your service as the chairman.
But I want to go back just a little, because I mentioned George has been one of the key founders, but, you know, George was one of the key founders. He was the president. Nancy Donahue, and I think everybody knows Nancy. Nancy was the vice president. Peter Stamos was the treasurer. Jock Pearson was the clerk. Dick Donahue was a director, and Bob Hayden was a director. Unfortunately, 4 of those individuals are no longer with us, but 2 of them are, and we continue to celebrate the work that they've done in the community for us. So
Yeah.
it's quite a legacy.
It really is.
And I think just for some of the people that might watch this that are interested, but again, might not know exactly how the foundations work, and I want to thank you for that very clear explanation, that even with the example with Bill Gates. But when you said that you had your goal to raise the amount, maybe just explain how that even happened. How are those amounts even brought together and advanced, just to explain how the foundation itself works?
Sure. It was really came from our strategic planning discussions, and like a lot of organizations, and particularly with community foundations too, part of your success is continue to grow your base
Right.
of assets, which ultimately allows you to be able to provide more assistance to the community
Right.
year after year. So even with the growth that we've had, we have to realize that the foundation has consistently been giving out $3 to $4 million and sometimes more per year.
Right.
So we've seen that significant growth, almost 60 million, but while that's occurred, there's been substantial dollars going into the community in the form of scholarships and a lot of money to benefit different nonprofits within our communities as well too, for
Right.
different needs and different
Right.
missions.
So I just wonder, you know, some of the other milestones that have happened. You mentioned $60 million in not in grants, I'm sorry. What is the total amount that's given out now in grants?
Well, I'm gonna differentiate between what we've been, you know, up to our neck in the last few years, which is COVID.
Right.
Because since COVID came into place, we've probably done, since the spring of 2020, about $10 million.
Okay.
Typically, what we do is approximately 5% of the total amount, so we're close to 60, so about $3 million goes out the door thereabouts.
Right.
Every year, and it goes out in a fashion whereby, and you know, folks will go, "Why, you're sitting on $60 million? You've got a lot of liquidity." Well, the vast majority of that are donor funds,
Right.
and they direct where they want their money to go. We have great success oftentimes reaching out to donors, going, "By the way, we've got an initiative that we want to do, and we're looking for some assistance." And they, "Oh, sure, take some of my donor advice funds towards that initiative." The other thing that we've done well over the last number of years is added to the discretionary money that the Greater Lowell Community Foundation has, which gives us the latitude to look at some of the key issues in our community and appropriate our own money towards that. And as you talk of milestones and things we've done, and I just think back over the different initiatives that we've taken. Back in 2016, when we came through there with discretionary money, it was like, well, what do we want to focus on?
Right.
And it took us like about 30 seconds to go opioid abuse.
Okay.
So we did opioid abuse. And we've done diversity, equity, inclusion. We've done homelessness. We've got the Afghan fund. We just put together a refugee and resettlement fund. The LGBTQ plus fund that was recently established. And we've matched money with those. So as I look at the milestones, I mean, part of it is, what are the things that are going on in your community that you need to address? And we work closely with many members in the community and some of our board. One of the things the Greater Lowell Community Foundation has that's unique to GLCF is that we've got 5 nonprofits on our board.
Okay.
And when I talk to my colleagues, nobody does that. And when I talked to one colleague early on, they go, "Why would you ever want to do that? Don't do that." And I was very wise to not follow that advice. And we get such rich discussion of what's going on in the community from board members because they're in the community doing the work.
Okay.
And it allows us to get a better sense of the needs that are in the community, because that's fundamentally what a community foundation is.
Right.
It's money in the community to address needs in the community.
So maybe just to give a more detailed example, say with the Afghan fund, was that an idea that came from someone in the community to you, and you said, okay, we'll come up with a way to fund that? Or does the board, as you say, identify certain issues and then say, oh, we'll set this fund up, now let's find a community partner? Does it happen both ways, or which
It
way?
happens multiple ways.
Okay,
There's-
maybe just give a couple
There's not
examples.
just one recipe for it. I mean, it's, again, it does come from, it comes from the board. Clearly, the whole, DEIB was back in 2020. There was a lot going on with George Floyd. We were going into a COVID and all of that, and there was a lot of discussion as to what do you do?
Right.
And we had significant discussions at the board as to
Right.
what are we gonna do, how are we gonna do it. So not only, we established a racial equity action fund, an endowed fund.
Right.
And then we also used, out of another endowed fund, discretionary money to continue to fund grants. We've been doing that for 4 years.
Right.
And we usually do them for 2. And when the 2 years was up, we had a discussion, what are we gonna do for the next 2 years? And we had 3 committee meetings. We got a variety of different committees, as all community foundations do. You've got your finance, your audit, your investment. But probably the most active one is program. And that's where we bring those discussions.
Okay.
And that's where most of the nonprofits that sit on the board meet with that subcommittee. We had a long discussion as to how effective was it? Well, should we do it again? What was the impact? We brought in a variety of the different grantees to speak to us as to what
Right.
difference it made to them. And it was all said and done, it was pretty clear that, yes, this is what we're gonna do. But the process was amazing, because literally it was 3 months, because we would meet once a month for the next 3 months. So
Right.
it rolled out at the end of December, so here we are, at the 3 months prior, having these particular meetings, having these discussions, bringing people in. And that was a way to continue that piece. As a result of that, interestingly enough, and as we do convening, I think convening has become a part of a role that all the community foundations do, and it's clearly a role that we do here. And in close collaboration with Enterprise Bank, we've rolled out several, DEIB events, and we had a panel.
Right.
And as a result of having the discussion with respect to the grants, it was like, well, we need to bring this out into the community. So, folks in our office, Jennifer Aradia was key at putting all the pieces together on it. We had a table discussion, a panel discussion with a variety of folks. We invited nonprofit leaders to come, and we had 100 people show up that were
Wow.
really like, how'd you do it? What'd you learn?
Yeah.
And I think that's a key piece of some of the other stuff that we do now.
Right.
Yeah, getting money to the nonprofits, and we've been doing that for a long time, particularly during COVID. But I think likewise, convening folks around the table and going, what are the issues we're facing, and is there a way that we can collectively figure out a better way to get there?
Yeah.
So we do that.
So really, just in some ways, to some, that there are many places with community foundations, but 2 things that make the Lowell Foundation unique is having the nonprofits on the board, because you were advised not to and you went ahead and did that. So that seems to have worked well. And now this new role, seeing yourselves as conveners. You would say those are probably two important characteristics that define this foundation.
Yeah, certainly, but also too, I think as Jay had mentioned, the discretionary fund balances that we now have. So rather than being a foundation that basically is always just following the wish of donors, which is wonderful, and
Right.
applying their funds as they've designated them, the foundation now has the ability, through this substantial amount of discretionary funds that have been raised over the years, to now take a very leadership, proactive approach in designating its own funds for specific needs within the community.
Great.
And that allows a foundation to be a leader at times with
Yes.
such issues as DEI or opioids or homelessness, that others will then band around and support as
Right.
well too. So
Right.
that's been a very important transition that's taken place over the last 10 years.
Right.
Prior to 10 years ago, we had a very small amount of discretionary funds. So
see.
the foundation's able now to operate in a much greater leadership position right now
Yeah.
and assisting the community. And this is something that can be sustained over time that has a big effect in the
Yeah.
community.
And we've set up a fund that we can use at any particular point during the course of the year.
Okay.
So if something comes up, it's like, we want to move on this, and we move on it.
Right.
An example of that was, back, it was in the middle of COVID, the city had a lot of discussion going on about doing a human resource audit. And I have a background in skilled enough to know that doing things like that it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they put out an RFP that included lots of different things, and it came back, and I looked at it and I said, it's gonna be about $125,000, and that's what the cost was.
Wow.
So they put it back out again, and the issue, of course, in the middle of COVID with everybody was, what are the resources we have to address these things? So it came back again, and it was $50,000, because they just pulled the HR piece out. And again, the banter down the end of the street was, I don't know if we've got the money for that. Well, we took that issue off the table. We said, we'll pay for it.
Right.
The Parker Foundation came in, the Saab Foundation came in, one of the donors came in and said, we'll pay for that's not gonna be an issue. We'll pay for it.
Right.
And went and testified in front of the city council saying, this is what it's for, and pretty much read back to them their RFP to say, this is your mandate on this, because
Right.
this is what you decided to do. And they did it.
Right.
And so that was a great step in that direction.
Right.
So
And-
just give a little more detail of why was that important, the HR audit? What were they trying to accomplish in doing that? Why was that, and how did that fit into some of these convening
Well,
roles
I
that you
mean,
had?
Chet?
As I recall, a lot of it was to do just with the hiring practices of the city at the time, and to just see with the diversification of its workforce.
So it was the DE and I kind
It
of
was. It was
helping
based-
it
to
was
based on
accelerate
that.
DE
Yeah.
and
I
I.
mean,
Right.
and
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's something everybody struggles with.
Yeah.
And diversifying your workforce is easily said, it's not easily done. And it was great to have that piece be done. And then there was subsequent discussions after that, implementation, so forth and so on. But it's a great document, it's an audit, I thought it was very well done. They had, and I went in on more than one other occasion, went back to City Hall to testify to say fundamentally that this really is a good audit. And there's some really good points in here, and you might want to start with point number one and go right down the line. And there was good discussion.
Right.
Yeah.
There really was, and they have moved in that, they are moving in that direction.
And so, again, this is just an example where, as a foundation, you could help and move it fast. Like that by the way that things are structured within the
Right.
foundation, that this was something that could happen in a very timely fashion.
Correct.
Right,
Kind of
Right.
right.
removing obstacles and
Right.
that are in the
Yeah.
way of something advancing.
Little things, I
Yeah.
mean, and we've done it to a different degree with not the same complication, but, the science fair over at Lowell High School needed additional money to get kids on a bus and feed them pizza.
Yeah,
And they didn't have the money.
right.
Boom, done.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
take care of that. That was easy. It was so much fun.
You see, that's an easy one, I can do
Yeah,
that.
My reward for that was being the judge at the science fair.
And what we've done, we every year, as part of our budget, we establish a president's fund. There's a certain amount of discretionary money that Jay has to be able to react quickly to these sort of
Right.
needs in the community. And what it requires is that, as the chairperson, he connects with me, we discuss it.
Right,
If we agree, he then has the ability to go and move quickly
Right.
and handle this, and then we bring it into our board later for their further
Right.
ratification. But that's
Right.
worked out very well too for us.
right.
Yeah.
It really has been impressive to see the growth of the foundation, both in scale, as you mentioned, and also the strength in convening, as you said, large groups, and tackling what feel like sometimes insurmountable problems like homelessness right now. But so talk a little bit more about, so what are your hopes and aspirations, and what do you think are the biggest obstacles to growing the community foundation?
We actually spoke about this a little bit yesterday, and there are many things we need to look at, but one of the areas that we talked about is how we need to continue to expand geographically where our donors are coming from. As Jay went over the original list of donors and founders of the foundation, we had some very philanthropic, affluent individuals and families that saw the need for this and have contributed to get the foundation started, and in many cases have continued to support us as we go forward. But we need to begin to look even further geographically into the communities that we cover, such as the Concord, Massachusetts, or the Grottons, or the Westfords, and other areas where we just need to cast on that a little bit further and get more folks who really become more engaged with us, and in turn, over time, will become more donors to sustain this going forward, while still looking to Lowell, but beginning to expand much more beyond our original Lowell base.
So the greater and greater Lowell will be greater.
Completely,
Okay.
yeah.
Understandably, Lowell has been the focus since day one.
Right,
And if you look at Lowell, and then you look at the surrounding communities, by far, the greatest need is in Lowell.
right,
I mean, it's a gateway city when you look at the statistics, the poverty, and the different things that go like that, by far, no question. So that has been where the focus is. But and then as we look to expand into the other communities and we look to expand the donor base, that's important. But the part that also expands quite a bit and becomes more complicated by the day is what are the needs in our community?
yeah,
And that drives that piece too. You know, when I first walked through the door of the foundation 6 years ago, the homelessness wasn't the same issue it is today. It's worse today than it was 6, 7 years ago. We'll look at migrants coming to our community in a way they haven't done that before. We're looking at mental health accelerating in a way that it hadn't before. We're looking at a lot of the different, you know, effects, if you will, from COVID that were not issues before. And again, part of what we're looking to do at the Community Foundation is our mission is to improve the quality of life of all the people in our service area that we have, is how do you address those things?
right,
And it gets more and more complicated to do that. It's more and more partnerships, and we've got lots of great partnerships, but it becomes more and more expensive too. And how do you do all that? And it's, you know, there's discussions at different levels at different community foundations going. And most use about 4 or 5% is what they call their spending plan out of the endowment. Should we do more of that? Should we do less of that? That discussion typically comes up as the market goes up and down, but it likewise goes up and down when the needs seem to get excessive.
right,
You know, as I mentioned, COVID, we were fortunate that we had lots of different partners that sent money our way to facilitate the needs to address COVID. I mean, right out of 2020, we were literally buying, you know, PPE because we had a supplier in Tingsboro that knew what we were doing, and when he had a supply committee, he called us.
right,
We were delivering, I had it on my front porch and I had people coming by and picking it up, literally.
wow,
And we were delivering it
Amazing.
to the health center and to the shelter
Yeah.
in different places like that. And cutting checks for $2,000, $1,000, you know, just because nobody knew. I
Right.
mean, everybody was like scared to death
Yeah.
right,
because nobody knew what this was going to be.
Right.
Yeah.
right,
And then there was mass COVID that was put together with former First Lady Lauren Baker and some of the key foundations in Boston that raised $25 million and used the community foundations to deliver
Right.
that.
Right.
A very smart decision on their part, which I think was fueled in large measure by the governor, Charlie Baker, because when the gas explosion in Lawrence happened, that's what they did. They ran it through Essex County Community Foundation.
okay,
And there was other foundations that said, that's great, yeah, let's give the money to the community foundations. And the state did the same thing. We got a variety of different funding mechanisms from the state. We were doing reporting and stuff that we'd never done before,
right,
which was obviously a condition of getting money. You
Right,
need to let them know
right.
where it's going.
right.
But yeah, that was in excess of $10 million, and we're still doing it.
So in a way then, as you're looking, as, it seems like the landscape of donorship itself is changing from, say, you said the early philanthropists, like say the Donahues, to now different types of donors or organizations that help run with or organize things with a community foundation. So it seems like the landscape of donorship is changing from, say, the single philanthropist to either these other organizations that are giving the money or the funds because they know you can disperse it, or is there even then, from what we were talking about with Michael Gallagher, is there even a sense of having more smaller donors that their smaller amounts somehow contribute to a larger good? Is that another side of the piece?
I think part of what's also occurred too is many years ago, and when part of our strategic planning discussions, one of our key items that we would touch on is the fact that we felt the community foundation is one of the best kept secrets in the community.
Right, right,
And I think over the last number of years, that's no longer the case. So the community foundation, and COVID, certainly with the role the community foundation
Right.
played in distributing funds, really helped to elevate its presence and its name throughout the community. And we're now a known entity, and that others are looking more towards us when
Right.
there's a need too. I think before, there was a need, and there always would be that need to go out and educate and try to bring in new donors, but I think we're at a point now where actually new donors are approaching the James team
Right.
at all different levels.
Right,
You know,
right,
smaller
right.
donors as well as some very substantial donors, because
Right.
they see the foundation as being the vehicle that they need to sustain their mission over the long term. And
Okay.
I think that's really helped a lot. That's a big difference that I've witnessed over
Right.
the last 5 years. It's
Right.
occurred right there.
Interesting.
That's very accurate. I think the interesting piece that when you talk about philanthropy, and I've said this multiple times, and I say it actually not that long ago at a UML class as we partner with.
I want you to talk about
One-
that too. Yeah.
But it's philanthropy, everybody thinks is this big word, and it's only associated with people that drive big cars, have big houses, and have a lot of money, and that's not true. Because as I remind folks, it's fundamentally civic engagement. If you have the big money and you give it, you're civically engaging by putting a fund there, and then it's going out to a nonprofit, you're helping that way. But if you're voting, you're civically engaging. If you're engaging in conversation with regard to, current matters that are going on, whatever it might be, and heaven knows there's enough of those, that's civic engagement. So it's not only with your money, it's also with your time and your talent. And that's all relevant to philanthropy. And yeah, money is great. It helps us do lots of good things. But, I think it's being engaged, because if you're engaged with the voting, with the civic engagement, and with all of those pieces, at some point in time, when you have the capacity to actually give, you will, because you
Right.
get it.
Right.
And that's all part of the spectrum.
No, so well said. So follow up, we've always appreciated at the university, you've been the Community Foundation has helped us on a number of projects, especially the class that was started in our honors college for students to learn how to give philanthropically or how to make grants and how complicated a decision it is when you actually have that funding and you have to choose who's going to be the recipient. So that's been sponsored for maybe 10 years now, I
It's
think.
been for a while. It's so much fun. I love being in the classroom anyways. I mean, it was when I was at Middlesex for 25 years, there was a couple of faculty members that go, "Cup, I want you to speak to my class." And that always brought me back, and I always enjoyed that. I taught at Suffolk on the MPA for a number of years as an adjunct, which was fun. Loved getting in that class. And so just getting in the class and seeing the kids is great, because it's just, they're like, "Tell me about this stuff, and how does
Right.
this work?"
Right.
And that's the discussion. I was, what about a couple, 3 weeks ago? Same thing. I said, that I gave them that it's about civic engagement, that same piece. And it is fun because they have to figure out what's going on within the nonprofit world, and many of them don't know.
Right.
At the end of the semester, and the faculty member, Deb Finch, who runs it and engages us and engages other people at the foundation to help her, the students write a paper. And she takes, it's got a variety of different things included in it, but one of them, what did you learn from philanthropy? And she sends it along. It's like, wow.
What did they say?
It's
Give us some
like-
examples.
Well, just how their eyes were opened with what
Yeah.
philanthropy is all about.
Right.
And the work that occurs in the community, and the needs that are in the community that they were unaware of.
Yeah.
Because as they do this grant program, we put in 5, the foundation puts in 5, so it's $10,000, not a ton of money, but
Right.
they decide where it goes.
Yeah.
And that process has morphed a little bit over time, but they need to do the homework to figure out where does money go
Right.
and why, and they decide that amongst themselves.
That's excellent.
And then every year we've been doing this, in December, at the beginning of our board meeting, they present. Not the whole class, but Deb will be
Right.
there, and they'll bring
Right.
1 or 2 students, and they'll
Right.
talk about what it meant to them.
Right.
And every member of the board is blown away.
Yeah.
They're like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
And, I take personal satisfaction in just doing that, as I explained how much I just enjoy doing that. But the other whole part of that is, where's the next gen philanthropy?
Right. That's actually one of our questions that we usually end with. So
Yeah.
please say that. Say more on that.
It's, we chatted earlier about, going to the different communities around Lowell to expand the donor base. but it's also dealing with who in your community.
Right.
And, you know, it's part of the civic education with, you know, with Next Gen as to why this is important.
Right.
And going to the classroom, doing a variety of different things that we do with the Next Gen. Having some new folks come on the board that, you know, I'm twice their age. That's not a bad thing either. And we've done that.
Yeah.
So in lots of different ways we look at it. With pre-COVID, we were doing some focus groups on that. Great work came out of that. You know, just the public matters piece, which we've been engaged in at a larger pre-COVID than we are now. But again, getting to that group, it's a whole bunch of young individuals that are coming up in the community.
Right.
Let them know why this is all important. Because to some, it's not that they're disinterested, but they didn't know.
Right.
Right.
Unaware.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you were addressing, you just gave us some ideas of what you would say, but I'd love each of you to kind of summarize what we're talking about today. Going forward, if you were addressing the next generation, we have a student sitting with us right now that is part of the future. Why is it important to get involved? Do you benefit personally? Is it because it helps? Why is it important to give back?
I could take the first stab at that if you like.
Sure.
You know, I think it's like for example, at Enterprise Bank, it's one of our core values is community, and I think we tend to hire people who have that sense of community and want to give back into the communities in which we do business. So that's been a big tenet of our culture. It's something that we take very, very seriously, and it really started at the very top with George Duncan. It's really the way in which George has always approached life and business, and I think there's many of us that think in a very similar way, and we've been attracted to work for George and his organization and to be able to do the same, which has been very, very good. But I can say over a career of doing this for about 40 years or so, whatever you give to the community, you get back tenfold in so many different ways. We had a little presentation yesterday in the bank for people who are thinking about joining nonprofit boards to give them a little education about this, take away some of the anxiety that people may have. Is this maybe something new that they've never considered before? And one of the things that I mentioned offhand is the fact that you get to meet people through this process. Maybe you never would have met through your daily dealings to begin with, and basically you're doing something great for the community, but there's also some very good benefits that you receive personally too, for knowing that you're doing the right thing, but also from the networks you establish, the people you get to meet, and just the enrichment in your life that provides you over time. I first met Jackie many years ago on the House of Hope board, so here's an example right here.
It's true.
Yeah,
that was my first board.
And I didn't know Jackie until then, and that was probably almost close to 25 years ago now.
Yeah.
But she was the president, I was the treasurer, and we had a great working relationship, and it's just funny how life goes on with that, you know. But that's just one example of the benefits that you receive personally as well too. But so I think that's maybe in a nutshell a bit of what I've seen that as.
Very helpful.
Excellent. Jay, do you want to add in?
Well, I can't see how it is that people would not want to get engaged. Because I think fundamentally it's like, do you care about yourself? Do you care about your family? Do you care about your friends? Do you care about your neighborhood? Are those things important to you? Because if they are, you need to know what's out there that's impacting them positively or negatively.
Right.
And I was very fortunate. I grew up in a great household. And lots of people don't. Lots of people have all sorts of issues in their lives. And there's the surrounding environment that has that impact on it for lots of different reasons. And you can't live your life in a vacuum. You can't just say, well, I'm going to have blinders on. I'm not going to worry about the things around me. Unfortunately, sometimes people do that.
Right.
But I think they're missing the richness of life. I think when you get out and experience the things that folks, some have and some don't, and you go, how can I change this? How can I make an impact? Do I care about that? Because fundamentally, I think everybody's kind and everybody's caring. And the question becomes is, how far do you want to take that? Where do you want to take that? Is it, yeah, I'm really busy in my life and I can make a donation, or you know, I'm going to volunteer, or any of those things. But I think it fundamentally gets back to what I've been saying a couple of times. It's the civic engagement.
Yeah.
It's like, what's going on in the world? What's going on in your life? What's going on in your neighborhood? And is it working the way you want it to? And if it's not, you learn more about what it's about. You engage other people that think similar ways, and you change it.
Right, that they have a voice.
Right.
That you
have to have a voice.
Right, you have a voice and you can work to have
You know,
that heard.
I say all the time, if you don't vote, shut up. Shut up. I don't
Then you
wanna
have
hear
no
it.
voice.
Tell us how you
You
really
have-
feel, Jay.
No, but it's funny because
Yeah.
we write these newsletters, and usually every time this year I write about voting.
Yeah,
And I say, if you don't vote, what you've done is you've given somebody else the opportunity to tell you what you're gonna do.
right. And not just do it for, like, not even
Right.
just tell you, but that's what you'll have to live with.
And I wrote something very much along those lines last year, and I get an email the next day from who? George. He said, right on point. Right on point. Because it's about being engaged.
Right,
Right.
And that's a very simple way to do it.
right,
But it frustrates me totally when you look at the turnouts
yep,
and you go, 80% of the people in our community didn't vote,
right, right,
Yeah.
or whatever it is. It's never, I mean, when presidential elections, you get the big turnouts, but still, it's like, where are you guys at?
Right.
right,
Why are you not paying attention to this?
right.
Yeah.
It's a really good encouragement to the next generation, and you know, I think Marie and I would like to thank you for your support of this really important project, and for being here today, and for all you've done for our community as leaders. Thank you both.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you.
likewise to yourself, as you have done and you continue to do, and it's our civic engagement.
Right.
And thank you for including us.
Good way to,
More than welcome.
good way to end it.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.